Needless to say, AI has been dominating conversations, especially since ChatGPT showed us what AI can do, and some say in the not-so-distant future, AI will be able to read your mind. Interesting, scary at the same time. Let's get perspective about the future of AI. His Excellency, let's start with you. When you talk about AI, I mean, Qatar, no stranger, because I know that during the FIFA World Cup, you tapped AI to, I guess, for the temperatures in the stadium, for instance, and algorithms and so on and so forth. And now let's talk about how AI will be tapped in the legal system. Give us a sense of how transformational AI has been for Qatar.
Thank you, Haslinda. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm really happy to be here. I don't know about reading minds, but what I could say that AI for us in Qatar has a great potential. As a small advanced nation, and I think for all small advanced nations, we normally have resources that we want to explore the most out of it. And in this case, human resources. And AI can play a big role into ensuring that we get the most out of what we have. Now, I think that there are also some constraints. I'm a user, sometimes a heavy user of ChatGPT, and sometimes you don't ask the right question, you don't get the right answer. And I think asking the right questions is a constraint that we will need to overcome, and also having the right regulations, as governments are trying to understand how to deal with AI. Now, in Qatar, we are a user of AI, and we have hosted an amazing World Cup where we've used AI in our transportation system, and we've helped to commute north of 1.5 million visitors. We are also using AI in some of the current applications that we have. For us in Qatar, we have an application called Kawadir, which is a workplace matchmake type of a platform where we match supply with demand. So we're using also AI in that area. But what's nice about it is the potential, is how can we actually get more out of it? And I think governments like Qatar would need to play three main roles. We need to, of course, be a regulator that's open and that would enhance and support innovation. We need to be a champion in that area, and governments will need to be champions by actually having the right strategies in place and policies in place. And this is what we do in Qatar in our AI strategy. And we need also to be a practitioner. We need to have the right team with the skills. And this is part of what we are doing by skilling and reskilling individuals to be able to deliver on their potential.
It's about unlocking potential. Hande, Sachin, give us a sense of where we're seeing that the most right now, Hande.
First of all, I'm very much happy to be one of the speakers in the, I think, one of the most speculative, I think, conversation in this forum, because AI and machine learning is something actually that we have been talking about for many years. Maybe at this point, before answering to your question precisely, I might ask the audience to think about what was the first time that you heard about artificial intelligence and machine learning? 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago? So I think probably 10 years ago or 15 years ago, we started to talk about machine learning or AI. We started to think about what is that and how we can utilize it. But I think until ChatGPT, none of us has exactly felt the impact of AI and machine learning technologies in our daily lives that much. This is the first thought, but it's not 100% correct, because before coming to here, I was reading some of the world's most important influencers of tech, and actually that's the trend, AI and machine learning. However, the definition of the trends are mostly about evolution of the existing ones to the future. So that's why actually there is something that we can be aware of, that AI and machine learning was already in our lives, just like Paul Graham, one of the founders of the Y Combinator, mentioned that electric cars, fake meats, AI, all three have been around since I was a kid. They were never good enough, so we learned to ignore them. but all three have now crossed the line where you can't. So what's next? So I think that's the first time that we actually started to include or feel that the AI and machine learning in our daily lives, and generative AI is actually one of them for sure. But I think we are going to see the impact mostly in terms of efficiency. What type of efficiency? Today, the cost of building a new car decreased significantly. Why? Because individual contribution of the engineers was less automatic and more required in the past, but now that kind of efficiencies has entered to our life in terms of the usage of AI and machine learning. So that's why I think in the future, we are going to see the impact of those in our lives in terms of the efficiency for the automation. I think automation is the key here. Most of the time, people, think or sometimes maybe scares that is AI going to replace human power? Human, definitely no, but human brain, definitely no. It's not going to replace it. It's going to enrich this. But by the help of the automation, I think we are going to see those in our lives more, and thanks to efficiency they create.
Sachin?
Look, I think it's a bit more nuanced. I'm always really taken back by how everybody is now talking about AI, and it's here tomorrow. But to be honest...
To be honest, it's here today.
I mean, it's been here for a while. But I'd say that the conception of where we think we are in AI and where we actually are, we are in the AOL days of the internet in terms of where it can go. I think what you're seeing is not suddenly an evolution of AI in 1 month when ChatGPT came out. The user interface changed. And we all miss that. The user interface became WhatsApp. Who uses WhatsApp in the audience? That's why everybody can now suddenly use AI. And if we think about everything up till now, you talk about sort of potential, but just see how everyone is playing with AI. It hasn't disrupted jobs yet. In fact, we're now seeing a whole new area of jobs, prompt engineering, being created. So you have to ask yourself, where is the short-term potential going to come? And I think it's a couple of areas. I think one, you have a strata of the population where there is a massive supply and demand mismatch. We were talking about this backstage. 600 million developers worth of demand, 50 million worth of supply. We can't build the software the world wants to build. And every country is saying, I want every single SMB to be digitally native. Well, there aren't enough developers in the world to build them. You imagine within an enterprise, right? You've got marketing teams or comms teams. There's so much work that they can't do it anyway. And so what you're going to start to see is incremental improvements in productivity in very carefully constructed use cases. Not suddenly your CMO is an AI, or your CFO is going to now, treasury is being run by AI. For the foreseeable next year, 2 years, I don't see a world where the brain, the nervous system, and the muscle get connected. Because if we did, it would be super dangerous.
Note he said, in the next year or two. So it's not that far away still. From an investor perspective, Raj, how are you looking at AI, and where is the money going? I mean, when you take a look at the possible trend and possible developments.
Well, I think Sachin's point's exactly spot on. So it is, I think AI's been around for a long time. We've been investing in AI for over a decade. The first place we invest in is AI enablement. So maybe it's not AI building blocks, but we invest in biotech companies that are using AI to build predictive models to help solve and treat diseases that haven't been solved before. I think that's one huge area. I think second is data. There is so much data. I mean, really, it's the rise of big data that's given rise to AI. And so we're investing in data streaming, data labeling, structuring data. We think those are great places to invest. The third part, I'd say, is I don't think all is won yet in this space. ChatGPT is amazing. But to Sachin's point, the way that you deal with AI is very different. It's conversational. And there are two big companies in the conversational space, Tencent with WeChat and Meta with both Facebook Messenger and with WhatsApp. And so I think people believe that Microsoft maybe has already won it. I actually think what Meta's done with their large language model, Llama, and open sourcing it, it's 1/3 the weight and scale of ChatGPT. It's open source, so Bard and Anthropic and OpenAI are not open source. And people in the last 3 to 6 months have been developing on this platform. It's getting really good. And I actually think that, and we don't invest in public markets, so please don't take my investment advice and go buy a bunch of Meta and 10-cent stock. But I actually think Meta is really well positioned. I'm partially biased. I have a co-founder who is still a major shareholder in the company. But I think that you're going to see, the landscape evolve quite quickly. And the only thing I'll add on Sachin's point is 1 or 2 years isn't a long time. I think everyone sitting in this room should be worried, because for the first time, AI is not coming after the service industry, it's coming after the white-collar workers. And that's where most of the disruption is going to be.
So I'm going to push back, because I don't think it's coming after people's jobs. I think it's going to create a balance between the already very extended demand and supply mismatch, where demand far trumps supply. I give you a really funny example. I was having dinner with someone last night, and he said, "Oh, there's so many coders. Should I send my kid for coding?" And I was like, you do realize engineering and coding are very different things. Engineering is taking a design system approach to solving a problem. Coding is learning a language. Which is why when you think about the world and you think about engineers and coders, it's a very different skill set. And so are we going to lose people that are taking a design system thinking of the world? No. We're going to lose someone having to spend 3 hours in Photoshop to design a picture because they can go to DALL-E or someone else. I think the second point also is, and I'm not an investor, but from just what I see in the landscape, you know, it's really easy to bet on a horse too early in this race, which is why I'm trying to say it's the AOL period. How many people use AOL today? And so that's my point exactly. You know, each of these models and these approaches have novelty in their approach. And I'm biased, so full disclosure, Microsoft is one of our investors. But what I really like about the Microsoft OpenAI approach and what some of the others are doing is it's taking this idea of a foundational model which can do general reasoning. And again, general reasoning is like, it's not going to take a job. It can just predict the next word to somewhat of 80% accuracy. But it can augment some sort of graph, some sort of data structure, which is unique to your business, unique to a region. So from a sovereignty perspective, think education. And it can leverage both, right? But it's being done in a robust and ethical way because it is being managed. And the real issue with a lot of this development that's happening is when it happens in the wild, it is very hard to police and create policy around.
Before we carry on, just hang on to that thought. I was so excited, I forgot about our poll question. It has to do with you. Okay, if you're ready, how will advancements in AI impact your jobs? A, complement your role. B, replace your role. C, create a new role for you. And D, no impact at all. We'll come back to that in a couple minutes so that we can tabulate all your responses, okay? So please do take part in this audience poll. Go ahead, Hande.
If we are not going to ruin the flow of your panel, I would like to also have one more pushback to this idea of the balance. I think it's not about the balance, it's about the input. Think about a ChatGPT conversation, how you are going to make it smarter. It totally depends on, you know, what type of input, how much input you put to that. Because if you put like a more precise, sometimes concise, but more information into the question, then the answer will be accordingly. So I would say that all the AI technologies, like the mentality of ChatGPT and how to make it like a smarter conversations, it's a combination of creativity of a writer, ability of the editor, which is ChatGPT, writer is us, and at the end, what we create is, through AI is a new form of human being. It's still human, but a new form of human being.
I think you wanted to add?
Yes, maybe just to add to the points. I agree that I don't think it's going to replace jobs immediately. And I think that there is a short-term impact and a long-term impact. And in the short term, I think, how do we adapt to it? How do we have the right skills with the right teams to be able to harness the power of AI? In the long term, it's how to ensure that we could skill and reskill. Because in the long term, it's going to have an impact in terms of new jobs that would be required in order to be able to harness the power of AI. And I think the impact of it, it's revolutionary in terms of, I do believe it has almost a similar impact of the internet to connectivity and sharing and creating communities, with the impact on productivity that we will have due to AI. We have also in Qatar, we're trying to embed AI in some of our applications. And we have our National Vision 2030 that's leading us towards creating a knowledge-based economy. And from there, we have the artificial intelligence strategy that was done by the Ministry of Telecommunication and Information. And from there, they laid the foundation of what do we need to implement in terms of regulations and applications, and having the right talent and skills in order to build. From the area where I'm leading in terms of government development and government services, we're just launching our government services strategy. And over there, our mission is to create smart government services that are supported by AI to support beneficiaries throughout their life journey. And I think life journey is the right word to actually categorize how AI is going to support us. And I go back to the examples of on the health sector. Qatar also, through its new platform for health exchange, data exchange, is going to utilize AI to prevent diseases and to have more of information provided to the patients in order for them to take better care of their health. Such applications are unlocking the potential of AI and utilization of AI. And I believe that in Qatar and also similar small advanced nations, this is the power of AI and how government should harness that power and build more on it to increase the output of it.
Sachin, how much is AI? How much is human? What's fact, what's not? What's hype, what's not?
Well, that's a profound question, right? And you know, with all the panelists that we have on stage here, I think you've just heard both the extremes, right? So on one hand, you have His Excellency and sort of this very pragmatic, specific use case implementation, and I think Qatar's done an outstanding job. And then you have this perception that it's human-like. Well, I push back. I think it's so far from being human-like because it's missing the most important thing of being human. It's missing a value system. And so till the machine can show examples of being sentient and not just predicting the next word, I think this is...
Not yet, though, right? I mean, at this point in time, you're saying it's missing.
Well, the technology hasn't been built for value systems, right? And we don't know, is that a graph problem? Is that an LLM problem? Like, you have a child. You tell the child, do not be bad. So the child knows, I'm not going to bite people. I'm not going to kick people. I'm not going to take my cricket bat and smack the person. They're all being bad. It's a value system. It's a silly example, but it's a value system. We haven't established that yet. Now, the contra side of it is you see many use cases of AI, computer vision, right? Collision avoidance. If we think about self-driving cars, there's a really interesting MIT problem. I think it's the moral machine. Do you run over the grandma or the bus with children? It's a value system problem. And guess what? Today, that value system problem is being programmed by a human. So to your question, in the cases that become where the brain and the nervous system and the muscle are connected, it's likely to be a human in the loop or a human really involved above the loop problem.
People are already talking about the need for regulation. If you say we are not where we think we want to be, then perhaps these are early days for regulation because you don't really know the role of regulation at this point in time. I'll come back to you in a bit. Raj.
You know, I think we are going to see regulation. I think that it was a bit of a mistake, all these people who signed the letter saying we should stop with AI development. No one's going to stop. But I think going back to His Excellency's point, the part that we as investors believe is most interesting is the disruption that it will cause in enterprise software. So you think about it, there is all this packaged enterprise software that governments and enterprises purchase, and then they spend tens of millions of dollars customizing it because it's not very good. And if there's enterprise software, packaged software companies in the cloud, here in the crowd, I apologize. We invest in this. We are big investors in enterprise software. It's our biggest area of investment. But what we see with generative AI is it can make anyone a programmer and a coder. I don't get to wear really cool sweaters anymore, and I have to wear a tie. But I used to be a coder and programmer. I know you guys can't tell. But I'm not very good anymore. But in the matter of one day, I was able to retrain myself on the OpenAI platform. And I actually coded a pretty simple piece of technology that we're now using at our firm to scrape data off LinkedIn and websites. And it took me 24 hours. And so the ability for governments, enterprises to build their own software, I think is really going to change the enterprise software landscape as investors, and there are many investors in the crowd. I think that's going to be an area for all of us to really focus on.
Let's get the results, if we can, from that poll so that we can start looking at whether or not you're going to keep your jobs. So the question is, how will advancements in AI impact your job?
There you go.
Complement my role? Very optimistic crowd. Create a new role for me, that's 16% replace my role, 5% no impact. Well, there'll be some impact for sure. So, complement my role.
I think that's also pretty much, answer that I expect, because maybe I can continue with the car analogy, because while you are talking about like intangible things like AI and machine learning, it's always good to follow the analogies or examples. I'm going to give an example from US about car industry. In the early of 19th, there were over 2,000 car startups in the US alone. As of 2023, there are about 157 left. In 1980, the car industry was about 2.4 billion in today's money. Compared to 2.2 trillion today, a 1,000-fold increase. So, why it's actually collapsed like this? Because in the early days of the car industry, the focus was primarily on individual inventors and engineering who were experimenting various design and technologies. Over the time, AI came, ML came, and this is actually, it started the ability to produce cars efficiently by the support of AI and machine learning, which is a great, I think, inline answer of the complementing my job, because it complements the current processes, current human power, and this is what we should expect from these technologies. This is what I think.
Your Excellency, do you agree? Complement my role?
I do agree. And I think this is part, well, it's very difficult to predict the future.
Yeah.
I think we have an investor here who
We
would
all
know
have
better.
different crystal balls.
Yes. So, but I think in the short term, yes, it's going to complement, and it's going to help get more. And again, I go to the analogy of limited resources with AI means more potential and more impact. But I want also to touch upon the regulation part, because I think this is key to where we're going with, especially for governments, where we're going with AI. And I think at least we're following what the EU AI Act is going through. And that would have an impact, because I think it would be the first AI regulation that would be actually implemented. So everyone is watching and understanding how others also are going to deal with this new area. And I think that, at least for us in Qatar, we have a clear path forward. We know that this is a great potential for us. And we know that the regulations that we're building together is involving the private sector, and we are always listening to the private sector and to the investors to understand what we can build together. B is more adaptive to this technology, and C, we are a practitioner by use, so we have use cases. And I think this is where the change through governments would happen. To have a very clear use case, to have partners who can actually build together the solutions for the use case, and then to test and try, to pilot, and to see what's the impact. Of course, data privacy is a priority to ensure that we're always maintaining the privacy of the data and working around our finding solutions for real problems by harnessing the power of AI is, I think, what every government is looking after.
I just want to quickly come to you. Sorry.
Yeah, I think on the regulation, it's a really important point because, you know, when you think about regulating AI, you're trying to regulate technology. But I give you two things. Every technology in history has had a good use case and a bad use case. Nuclear power, nuclear weapons, commercial flight, bombers, right? And I think in the case of AI, you have to go deconstruct where does the problem lie. So we talk about deep fakes. That's not an AI problem, because if you watch Top Gun, Val Kilmer's voice was generated by AI. I don't know about you, but I love the movie, so I think it was a great use of a deep fake. However, the Pope wearing a bomber jacket is a bad idea. And so this actually exposes underlying issues, which is there is a social media regulation problem. There is a cloud data sovereignty regulation problem. And I say the last one is, unfortunately, all of these LLMs and a lot of what we're sort of hearing about as the top layer of AI today is driven by volume of data. So if sovereign states aren't producing enough volume of data, they're not being heard. And I give you a really silly analogy, right? So you have algorithms being written, let's just say in San Francisco. Let's just say the data is being labeled somewhere in East Asia. And then you have someone asking, like, what is turmeric? The label was, if it was labeled by an Indian person, they say it's the spice you put in curry. If it was labeled by someone on the West Coast, it's a latte. If it was labeled by someone else, it's a herb for medicinal purposes. And so the thing is, you lose the nuance unless you have the right volume of data balanced out, which is why I think regulation is so important.
We have run out of time, and I think we are ending the session with more questions than answers, but at least we'll leave you with a lot of things to consider. Thank you very much. It's been an insightful conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.